Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our March breakfast briefing. For those of you that don't already know me, my name is Gwen Stoltz, and I'm the Executive Director for Represent PA. Now, I know the topic today that we're talking about is timely and important. I am sorry that this has to be our topic, but with national news, with Renee Good and Alex Preddy, it just seemed like, how can we not be talking about this? And I am just delighted with the guest speakers that we have joining us. Before we get to our topic, though, I am just going to talk very briefly about Represent PA because I think there's some people joining us today that are new to us, and we are a little bit unique. We're the only organization in Pennsylvania that is solely dedicated to investing in pro-choice Democratic women that are running for the state House and the state Senate. So we got started back in 2014. And since then, Represent PA has invested about $2.25 million into 144 different women candidates. And over half of those investments have come in just the last two legislative cycles. So we had kind of a slow burn start and then really ramped up in the last few years. All of those investments absolutely had, played a role in helping to flip the House back in 2022. And because of this long-term investment in women in Pennsylvania, we're helping to build a pipeline of women leaders. And we're so proud to be able to say we've supported many phenomenal leaders, one of whom will be a guest speaker today, Senator Maria Collett, since their very first run for office. We've also supported Joanna McClinton, who's now Speaker of the House, in her first run for office, Representative Leanne Kruger, all of these amazing women that are doing phenomenal things. Just so proud to be able to say that we knew them when. But some interesting statistics, and I know we talk about this a lot. We say, since Represent PA got started, the number of women serving in the legislature has nearly doubled. And that's true. But I would say the even more impressive statistic, and this one comes from Chris Jacobs. She went and looked at this, and we were talking about this the other day. So this one kind of blew my mind. So when we talk about the number of women serving in the legislature doubled, we're talking about Democrats and Republicans. But when you look inside that number, the number of Democratic women serving in the legislature has tripled. And that far outpaces the number of Republican women. Gee, what could the difference be? I mean, it's definitely Represent PA. I mean, we've invested $2.25 million. How is that not going to make a difference in Pennsylvania? And why do we talk about representation? Why does this matter? Well, women make up over half of the population in Pennsylvania. There's more women living here. There's more women voting here. But yet we make up barely a third of the legislature. Who is serving out in Harrisburg? Those are the people that decide the policy agenda. They decide what rights get protected. They decide what ultimately becomes law. So, with over half the population being women, we should have equal representation deciding these really important things. And you can see it play out in, the founding of the Black Maternal Health Caucus. There's certainly many other areas we could talk about. Well, issues important to women being brought to Harrisburg, and that's important. But, let's be honest, women also get things done. And it doesn't have to just be about what's important to women. There are many wonderful men serving too. I am not trying to say that men aren't wonderful legislators, but I would just, with over half the population being women, we've definitely got some work to be done. Okay, with that, I want to turn to the topic at hand today. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about ICE activity. And I regret that we do need to be talking about this. It's depressing that this has to be the topic of our briefing today. But we're very fortunate to be joined by two phenomenal women that are going to really put some context to this. So first, we're going to hear from Heidi Roux, who is the director of Immigrant Justice at the Welcome Center. Heidi was previously the executive director for Immigrants' Rights Action in Bucks County. She's got an impressive background. She has a Bachelor of Science in Marketing, a Master's in Business Administration, and does this work through a lived experience and a passion because she herself immigrated to the US and became a US citizen around the age of 18. So first we'll hear from Heidi Roux for about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to also introduce Senator Maria Collett so that I don't have to go back to the slide, and we'll hear from Maria for about 15 minutes. But we're, of course, delighted at Represent PA to be able to say we supported Maria since her very first run in 2018. When I was making this slide, it's like I almost forget how impressive of a person Senator Collett is. She brings this dynamic background. She served as Deputy Attorney General in Camden County and then went on to become a nurse and was serving as a level 1 trauma nurse. I mean, imagine that experience being brought to the state Senate. Like, how lucky are we to have Senator Collett bringing that experience and fighting for us in Harrisburg? She is now in a leadership role in the Senate and serves as the Pennsylvania Senate Democratic Caucus Chair. So the run of show is going to be, we'll hear from Heidi for about 15 minutes. She's got some slides to share, and she's going to give some context and background, what's going on locally in Bucks County, what does the Welcome Project do? And then we'll hear from Senator Maria Collett, and she's going to talk to us about, what can be done in the state legislature, what's out of our hands of the state legislature, and what kinds of things is she doing to help us. So with that, I will turn things over to Heidi. Heidi, just let me know when you want me to go to the next slide.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And I always like to check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. So thanks for the introduction, and it's wonderful to be here. I love what you're doing with Represent PA and your organization. So my name is Heidi Roux. I'm the Director of Immigrant Justice at the Welcome Project. I like to start out with my contact information. You can always email me or call. That's my work cell. I want to be available and make sure I'm a resource for anyone, whether on this call or please feel free to use me as a resource. Next slide. Uh-oh. Hello?
Can you see it, Heidi? You're a little choppy in your connection.
So sorry about that. The storm has definitely affected our internet connection at home. So Wi-Fi from my phone or my data from my phone. Sorry about that. Please let me know if it happens again. Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you. You were frozen, but I can hear you now.
We strive to be a diverse, safe place for marginalized and vulnerable populations, and we seek to bring about positive change to improve the quality of life among individuals and families in the greater Philadelphia area. So we do serve with our programming. Next slide. Thank you. So we do have 3 different departments. One is our LGBTQ plus programs, and the other is our interfaith programs. But what I want to highlight and talk about with you today is our immigrant justice programs. So we host legal clinics in and around Bucks and Montgomery County. Currently, our office is in Hatboro, but we have done legal clinics in Doylestown as well as Norristown. So what is a legal clinic? A legal clinic is an opportunity for anyone to come and meet one-on-one with an immigration attorney, usually for 45 minutes to an hour, locally. So that saves on transportation to Philly, which sometimes requires taking the day off of work. They can come visit that immigration attorney locally, and it saves on the cost of the consultation, which can run around $300. So they're able to do that for free. So please refer anyone you think could benefit from that those free consultations with an immigration attorney. Send them our way. We have a legal defense fund that assists with a small scholarship. It's $500 toward the retaining of any immigration attorney so that an individual or a family can begin their regularization process or adjustment of status. Most recently, we launched our rapid response program in June of 2025. We do have ICE activity locally, and I'll speak to that in a little bit. But I want to let you know we have over 300 volunteers across Bucks County. Our rapid response program just covers Bucks County. There's another organization that we work closely with that covers Montgomery County. And what that is we respond to ICE activity in a timely manner. We bear witness. We are able to video record and just be a resource and a presence, a supporting presence while anything is going on, ICE detention and activity in general. And we do know your rights trainings where we go into community, ensure people are aware of their rights, up to date with what is going on in the area, and speak to what can be done and how you can make sure your rights and the rights of your neighbors are being upheld. And resources and referrals, we do get calls as soon as from family members as soon as the loved one has been detained, and we have to work very quickly to ensure they have access to legal representation and that they can connect the attorneys with the detained individual as soon as possible. We use the ICE locator database, which a current change we have seen. We used to be able to locate individuals within hours of detainment. Now it's taking days for them to be input into the system. And the goal there is to get them legal representation before they are moved to another detention center. So our local detention center is in Moshannon Valley. Yes, I am connected with a new sanctuary movement in Philadelphia. That was one of the questions in the chat. We work very closely together to coordinate efforts, and they run the rapid response program in Philly. So I don't believe I have any more slides, but I wanted to just speak to what we're seeing. Oh, sorry. I do have one.
One more.
One more. So, aside from my department, which I'm obviously very passionately and completely involved in, we do have larger programming. The Welcome Project PA. We know that migrant LGBTQ plus individuals that are marginalized communities are facing interconnected challenges on a daily basis. And this is why it's imperative that the work we do across identities and movements to build inclusive systems of support and advocacy. So we always like to say, help us widen the welcome by working together. It makes us stronger. It lets us continue serving individuals with dignity, safety, and opportunity. Someone asked in the chat, and feel free to pop questions, and I like to make presentations kind of interactive. So yes, the Montgomery County Rapid Response is run by an organization called Montco Watch. They do have a social media presence that you can follow and stay up to date. And I know that they're always looking for volunteers. Gwen, if we could just land on my contact slide, the first one, I want to make sure that if I am not able to answer your question, that you can reach out to me in the future, and we can touch base then. I think the question is, what success am I seeing? I saw that in the chat, and is that specific to the rapid response program? I'll address both. So from our legal clinic's perspective, we are absolutely seeing a large success rate in connecting individuals with legal representation. Now, there are plenty of individuals that do not, with laws as they currently are, apply for any type of immigration relief. Now, what we do with those is ensure them know that they're not alone, that regardless of your immigration status, you have rights under the US Constitution that apply to everyone. Sorry, I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat, and I think for the last 5 minutes is just open it up to Q&A. So I get, that we want to make sure people know that we are there and support them regardless of their immigration status, and connect them with programs that they qualify for if needed. As far as programs we connect people to, we want to make sure they have access to education. So we help enroll children in school, or ensure that children are enrolled in school and attending school. Access to mental health services and health services. We have a wonderful resource that we collaborate with, the Ann Silverman Clinic here in Doylestown, PA, that can provide healthcare to the uninsured. And we have a couple of mental health resources, very important, because what we is a rise in, and understandably, in anxiety, in fear. So everyone's kind of baseline has been altered and has increased. And that varies, of course, from person to person, but what we witness is anytime there is ICE activity in a particular neighborhood, it affects the entire neighborhood. We have individuals that choose not to send their children to school that day, that choose not to go to work that day, not to leave their homes. So it is directly impacting entire neighborhoods across our area. And what we try to do is, we try to physically show up, connect with families, and if children need rides to school, or people need rides to work, we have volunteers that are available for that, even if it's going to the grocery store with someone or for someone. We're really doing these grassroots, just providing these types of supports which are needed at this time. I want to speak to a question I always get, which is, what does ICE activity look like here in Bucks County, which is what I can best speak to. And since January of 2025, we have seen an increase in ICE activity. They their office is in Philadelphia. And what we're seeing that is new is when our Bucks County individuals are going down to do a regular ICE or a court date in the ICE office, being detained at that time. So while being detained in Philadelphia, we are still seeing that as impacting Bucks County because this is where their family is. We see the most activity in Lower Bucks County. They are present on an every other day basis in the lower part of the county. I'm speaking to areas like Bensalem. We've seen them in Bristol. We've seen them in Fairless Hills. And these are kind of the spots that they seem to be targeting. Central Bucks, I like to divide the county by lower, central, and upper, just for geographic purposes. So Central Bucks, what we're seeing is that there is activity in the Warminster area, Warrington, Chalfont, Doylestown, Plumsteadville, and Pipersville. These are the areas where we've noted ICE activity, and we did have during our prior sheriff administration individuals held from the Bucks County Courthouse. We haven't had that with our newly elected sheriff, but again, it's out of control whether ICE is. I do want to talk about Upper Bucks because we have seen increased activity in Upper Bucks, specifically in Percy and in Quakertown, as well as Dublin. As far as numbers, we do not keep a database with any identifying information or number of individuals detained because it is usually unknown and difficult to verify. But we do know what areas are being targeted. And overall, we're seeing about 3 to 4 individuals detained per. And while numbers are higher in places Morristown or Phoenix, where they have daily activity, we do want to make sure that our residents here across the county know what we're actually seeing and not relying on outside media coverage from places like TikTok or Facebook, where unverifiable information is shared. That really does increase the level of anxiety, fear, and crisis mode among our community, and is just not. We want to spread and share verifiable information is our goal. I do want to open it up because I was unable to keep up with the chat.
Oh, so Heidi, we will like after Senator Collett speaks, we'll have more time for questions because I did notice there are a lot of really great questions, and I think we'll be able to get back to them. I just want to, before we switch to Senator Collett, because you cut out, and I feel like it was really an important data point you were going to give us. You said 3 to 4 people are detained per, and I didn't hear. Was that per month, per week,
It's per week.
Oh, geez. Oh, that's terrible. Okay.
We have an average of 3 to 4 individuals being detained per week, and that's here in Bucks County.
Oh, geez. Well, thank you so much. So I think at this point we'll switch over to Senator Collett, and then we can, when we take questions, hopefully you'll stick around, Heidi, to take any other questions at the end. Okay, I'm gonna fast. Thank you so much. I'm going to fast. Okay, here we are. Okay, on to Senator Maria Collett.
Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Gwen, for inviting me. And thank you, Represent, for all of the good work you do, and especially for being interested in these topics that are impacting people on a day-to-day basis. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we can do here in Pennsylvania. As you know, we don't have control over the federal government. So what can we do to keep Pennsylvanians safe? So next slide, please, Gwen. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we need to know, what I'm personally doing as a legislator, what other legislators are doing here in our Commonwealth, and how you can be helpful. Next slide. So I just want to sort of reiterate some of the things that Heidi was talking about. You know, we have our on our website, we have a section that is dedicated just to this topic. How are we protecting Pennsylvanians? And so what we really want to let people know is we want to validate what people are feeling right now, that the way we're seeing ICE operate and being used by the federal government, it's wrong, it's dangerous, it's doing nothing to make us safer. It is really deteriorating trust in law enforcement and government institutions. It's deepening growing divisions that are already existing in our nation. And specifically, you know, these anonymous masked agents that are just sort of, you know, kind of operating without oversight in our communities are really making all of us tense. And so I just want to validate that, you know, to start off with, that this is a real issue. It is really impacting the people in our communities and around our Commonwealth. That's not something we're imagining. And we shouldn't let folks that are, you know, arguing about making sure that we're getting rid of the illegals and the criminals gaslight us into thinking that any of this is doing anything to make us safer or protect our freedoms or even protect our communities. So next slide, please, Gwen. So again, state senators, state representatives, we do not have control over or the opportunity to vote on federal issues. We don't vote on immigration policy. We don't vote on the Department of Homeland Security budget. But we do deserve law enforcement agents, as written here, that are highly trained, that are professional, that are operating transparently, that are working in the interest of public safety and specifically in de-escalating conflict and dangerous situations. So what we have a responsibility to do is make sure that we are holding law enforcement, any law enforcement that's in our community, to those standards. So we can do that through some state legislation. Next slide, please, Gwen. So in the next two slides, there are a lot of pieces of legislation that are being produced or proposed at the state level. I'm going to talk about some of them, certainly not the whole array of them. But the first one I want to talk about is Senate Bill 1071. That is Senator Cappelletti and Senator Saval's bill that would require officers and agents to wear clearly visible identification. It prohibits them from wearing masks or facial coverings or other garments that obscure their identity. We have seen so many people that really are fearful, of course, because they don't know who they're interacting with. It puts us on edge. It makes us distrust law enforcement, you know, kind of generally. And so we think that, hey, when, you know, I live in Lower Gwinnett Township, when a Lower Gwinnett Township police officer pulls me over for running a red light, they're in a vehicle that is marked. They are identified. They identify themselves when they come to my vehicle. So these are the things that we are going to require from any law enforcement officer operating in our Commonwealth. We also can do things to strengthen our local and state jurisdictional authority to investigate, prosecute criminal conduct that involves incidents that are involving excessive use of force. So one of the things that came out of the tragedies in Minnesota was I had the opportunity to speak with the Senate Majority Leader there and ask her, what are you proposing in Minnesota to protect Minnesotans? Can we do it here in Pennsylvania? And so these are some of the ideas that came back. Strengthening state criminal and civil penalties for destroying, concealing, or manipulating evidence, right? We want to make sure that it's a crime scene. We want to make sure a crime scene is being held to the highest standards for evidence detection and evidence collection on both sides, right? So we want to make sure that we're entering into that just like we would any other criminal investigation. We want to prohibit law enforcement agencies in Pennsylvania from using state and local resources to conduct immigration enforcement on behalf of the federal government. This is a big one. And we have seen Heidi is operating in Bucks County. We saw the Bucks County Sheriff make a declaration as soon as he was elected that local Bucks County law enforcement would not work in cooperation with ICE. I think we need to sort of say statewide, this is something that we're not going to tolerate. And our governor has said as much, that this is not a place where federal ICE agents are going to be welcomed in and work with our law enforcement. But municipalities are different. And the governor is in control of the state police and not necessarily in control of the municipal authorities. And so we're seeing that in some communities across our Commonwealth, people are saying, hey, we're going to work with ICE. We want to say, no, we are not going to do that statewide. We're not assisting in any of these enforcements unless there is a judicial warrant, right? That is the standard that we have always used, and we need to use it here as well. Next slide, please, Gwen. Continuing with legislation that's been proposed, preventing civil immigration arrests by federal immigration authorities inside or within 1,000 feet of a Commonwealth owned or leased facility. Again, we're requiring a judicial order. This is the same that we would require of any other, arrest that's being made. But this is an important one because it really does give us control over a lot of square footage, because the Commonwealth owns and leases a lot of buildings and uses a lot of spaces around the Commonwealth. We want to prohibit indiscriminate tactics of arrest and detainment. So again, we want to know when you're coming up to arrest somebody, we want to know who you are. You identify yourself as a law enforcement officer, and we want to have, using the clear best practices that law enforcement uses when they are arresting or detaining someone. That footage that came out of Minnesota, we saw illegal chokeholds being used. We saw people that were resorting to really violent tactics to arrest folks. And so now, Judy, just to answer your question in the chat, these are all different bills. There is a large package of bills. So these are all different initiatives. So we want to make sure that when someone is acting in a law enforcement capacity in an arrest or detainment, that they're using best practices in terms of, those tactics for arrest and detainment. We want to allow Pennsylvanians to address federal actions that violate their constitutional rights through our state court system. This is a big one because this would allow people to initiate state court action when their federal rights have been violated instead of having to be removed to federal court. So this is something that we think will really help ensure that Pennsylvanians are protected here in our Commonwealth. And then the last one I want to talk about, this is an initiative that I am really, kind of working on. It's creating Pennsylvania's licensing and inspection system for any detention facility operating within our Commonwealth. So I saw some folks talking in the chat about just how inhumane these detention centers are. They're big warehouses where we're just storing humans. We are not actually detaining them to any standard or any level, especially when it comes to children that are being detained. So what we want to do is create a system that would require enforceable standards for safety, transparency, humane treatment, holding operators accountable for violations. I want to be really clear that the idea here is not to have a bunch of ICE detainment facilities across our Commonwealth that we're treating like our correctional facilities. What we want to do is frankly, make it so onerous that they don't want to open a detention facility here in Pennsylvania. It is our goal to say, look, you have to, abide by all of these standards. And before you can even open the doors of this building, you're going to have to, bring all of this up to code in a way that is going to be so onerous that they're going to say, forget it. Pennsylvania is not the place for us to play around. So those are some of the things that legislators across our both chambers are doing. I want to be really clear, and I don't want to be overly partisan here, but I do want to indicate very clearly, very frankly, these are Democratic initiatives. My Republican co-sponsors are not signing on to them. My Democratic colleagues and I in the Senate introduced a resolution that right after the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, that really sort of condemned those actions and said, we here in Pennsylvania believe in the Constitution, believe in the constitutional rights of due process, and those are the efforts that we need to be supporting here in Pennsylvania. We, as a full caucus, introduced that resolution. My colleagues that are in the Republican majority in the Senate have yet to bring that resolution into circulation. So when we introduce a bill, it doesn't just go into circulation. It has to go into circulation via the leader's office. And the leaders just circulated that. And that was just after the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. So they're really dragging their feet on doing anything that condemns these actions and, frankly, that even upholds the standards of liberty and constitutional justice that we all as Americans deserve. So again, I don't want to be too partisan, but it's hard not to be when this is the situation and the reality that we're seeing here. Next slide, please, Gwen. So how can you help? Make your voices heard. I see a lot of really wonderful questions in the chat. You all are engaged. You are paying attention. You're here this morning early to hear about what's being done. Please continue to be engaged. Continue to, connect with your representatives in Congress, our U.S. Senators John Fetterman and Dave McCormick, who do have the ability to, vote on things that are happening with ICE, whether it's through funding or whether it's even just through, kind of reining in some of that authority. And then the other thing that I really want to, empower you to do is understand the rights that we as American citizens have and ensure that people around you know their rights too. They have the right to remain silent and not answer questions, the right to deny entry without a proper warrant, the right to legal representation before signing any documents. And you have the right, we all have the right to leave if we are not under detention. I want to be really clear how important it is that we understand our rights, that we exercise our rights. What we saw in Minnesota was, frankly, it was the will of the people that really drove back so much of the ICE activity. They came out with cameras and they videotaped everything. They posted it to social media. They asked questions. They said, who are you here for? Where is your identification? This is my property. Get off of it. We have those rights. We have to exercise them. It is scary in the moment. Absolutely. I don't want to discount that. But we have these rights that are, entrusted to us by the Constitution of our United States. We need to exercise them. Next slide, please, Gwen. This is my last slide, just final thoughts. We want to maintain civility and respect, be cognizant of our own safety and that of others when you are participating in a protest or a rally. Be aware of your own safety, the people around you. I know that we've all heard the suggestions for making sure that when you have your phone with you at an event that you don't have facial recognition to open that phone. That would require, if a law enforcement officer sees that phone, it would require a warrant to get into your phone, or it would require you to enter the passcode. But facial recognition, they can get into your phone just by holding it up to your face, and then they're able to look into your phone and get information about you. So maintain your safety, be cognizant of it. When we're exercising our freedoms to assemble and speak, we want to do so, again, peacefully, respecting our laws, respecting our neighbors and our communities. Threats, violence, property damage do not have a place in peaceful protest and in nonviolent resistance. And I know that for so many of us watching the videos of the horrors that happened in Minnesota, it boils our blood. It makes us angry. It says we have to fight back. We do. We are fighting back with all of the power of the law behind us. And I know sometimes it feels bleak. It feels like, look, we don't have enough, people in authority that are supporting us. I want you to know that we do have that. We have really wonderful law enforcement officers in our community that are ready to step up and stand in the fray of this challenge. We are a community of people that are ready to stand up and step in the fray of this challenge. We must continue to do so. And, just on, another note, I just want to say that I really am so thankful and grateful to see so many people here this morning engaging in this discussion about this. It is something that so many of us can easily say, this doesn't impact me. I don't need to be a part of this discussion. But the fact is, it impacts every one of us. When our neighbor is in jeopardy, when our neighbor's freedom is in jeopardy, our freedom is also in jeopardy. And we must remember that. That's why we stand up. That's why we speak out. It's why we videotape and elevate and amplify. So please keep doing all of the things you're doing. Represent. Thank you so much for making this an important issue. It is. And thank you for allowing me to speak a little bit on what we're doing in the legislature.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was fantastic. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen We have a number of questions in the chat, and I want to try and get to as many of them as we can. So when I ask them, I don't, Senator Collett or Heidi, whichever one, of you feels you have an answer, you can both chime in. So I know Kathy Raphael asked a while ago, she wrote in, it seems like ICE's strategy is to move people around quickly and then often out of state. Do you find this to be so in PA? Are either of you able to have answered that?
Yes, I can speak to that. And that is a correct statement. We are seeing holds in Moshannon Valley as short as 2-3 days, where they are then sent to relocated to a detention center in Louisiana or in Texas, and shortly thereafter deported. So that speaks to um, the real need to connect with legal services as soon as possible. Yeah.
Um, Senator Collett, did you have something to say on that, or should we go? Oh, we'll go to the next question. So the next question I'm seeing is, practical efforts, and I feel like Senator Collett, you did a really great job on highlighting that. I don't know if there's any other information that either of you want to give. I think you talked about contacting your legislators, knowing your rights, and I know like the Welcome Project, you guys offer these trainings on knowing your rights. Is there anything else? Do you guys have any other little nuggets to offer there?
I would just say there are a lot of really wonderful advocacy organizations like the Welcome Project that are doing this work. The Worry Center in Montgomery County is doing a lot of this work. They're terrific. If you go to my website, you will see that there is a section under our issues page that's protecting Pennsylvanians from ICE. And at the bottom, we have resources where we connect links to all of these incredible organizations, and also a little card that you can print and carry with you that clearly spells out your rights so that you have them. You have something in your hand if you're at a protest or a rally, or you see something happening in your grocery store on your street corner, something that you can carry with you. So we have all of those on my website. It's Maria Collett. What is it? It's Maria Collett at pasenate.com. That's my website. I'll put it in the chat. I forgot.
Yeah, and we can put it when we send out the recap. I'll make sure to put it in there. If you make sure you get it to me. um, let's see. Okay, there's a lot of questions. So another question here is, where the majority of individuals taken? Home, work, public places, schools, or is it just kind of across the board?
I'm sure Heidi can speak more specifically to this, but it's so random. And I think that that's one of the things that's so incredibly, frightening about this. It's just why we have this sort of like holistic approach, because there are so many places that we're seeing this happen that we can't just be sort of isolated and say, at your place of worship, be careful, but not at your grocery store or not outside at your child's school. But I'm sure Heidi can speak much more specifically.
Thank you. Yes, and I'll just add to that. We are seeing detainments at outside places of work, not necessarily inside places of work, although we have seen that. We have also seen individuals being detained just in public spaces. So walking down the street in a neighborhood, or in front of a Home Depot. So these kinds of things. What I do want to reiterate that we are not seeing is we are not seeing ICE enter schools locally, or places of worship locally. I know this is a big concern for many, and I will shout it from the rooftops when we do see that, but we are not seeing that to date.
Okay. Okay, Karen asks, and this is probably on a lot of people's minds, is there anything, or what can we do to block development of new detention centers? Like, is there anything at our disposal? Maybe Senator Collett might be best to answer that. I don't know.
Yeah, I have to say it's tough because a lot of this happens, of course, at these detention centers are federal, so they're purchased by the federal government or stood up by the federal government. Unfortunately, even going to a zoning board meeting doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the ability or opportunity to, before the fact say, hey, we don't want this here in our community. What you can do, I think this is, something that I have done and will continue to do, is make sure that my local township officials understand, get a coalition together, tell your local township officials, we do not want this here. And put the pressure on them really to push back when a sale is occurring. There was a township out in the western part of Pennsylvania where a Big Lots warehouse was sold and is going to become an ICE facility. That happened privately. That sale happened privately between the federal government and the owner of that Big Lots warehouse. We often don't have the opportunity to, put in guardrails around that. And there are certain restrictions, sadly, on zoning authorities at the local level, restricting federal use of properties or buildings in our communities. So I think at this point, the best thing we can do is continue to support the governor in his statement that we will not have ICE detention centers here in Pennsylvania. Be loud about that. Ensure that people in your townships that are representing you as your county commissioners, as your township commissioners, as your borough council members, that they understand and know that this is not something you and your fellow community members want in your, give them the strength to push back on this by saying my community doesn't want this. But it's hard. I don't want to give anyone false hope. It is a difficult endeavor.
I echo that call to action. Sorry, I echo that call to action. Please contact your local representatives, put pressure on them. I mean, this is the time to be, to be a legal advocate, to continue to do legislative advocacy around this issue. I did want to add specifically to Bucks County, our commissioners did pass a resolution. It passed 3-0, stating that Bucks County does not want and will not support the use of warehouses as detention facilities for ICE. But again, that call to action is to continue that legislative pressure and advocacy around this issue. It really does make a difference.
Yeah, I'm seeing a couple of questions that kind of go together, and it's really around the bills that you were talking about, Senator Collett. So, someone is, I think you kind of addressed the one they were asking, are these different bills? Because you had SB 1071. And then Judy's asking, how likely are they to pass? And Bill Ewing, it's really similar question, have they been introduced yet? Are there any movement in committee?
Yeah, so most of these bills the co-sponsorship memos have been introduced. I saw someone said, can we get a list of those? Absolutely, we can put that together. I dropped the link in the chat for my website, the issues page, where there are links to every one of these pieces of legislation that I referenced. And we're working, Senator Savala is actually working on a coalition for the package of all of these bills. They've been introduced. What is the likelihood that they will be voted on? I suspect that with a Democratic majority in our state house, we will see some, if not many of these, at least go through committee, if not get through a full floor vote. But again, I want to just reiterate, we have a Democratic minority in the state Senate, and our colleagues on the other side of the aisle have been, I don't want to say reluctant. I will say absolutely clearly they have just been obstructionist about this. They've been complicit. They won't even condemn these actions in any form. And in fact, when we sort of stand up on the Senate floor and, sort of speak on this, we are admonished by the leader, that we're talking about something that is not in our purview, that this is federal stuff, this is not state stuff. And so, will these move? Unlikely. But the point is for us to stand firm in this is how we want Pennsylvania to operate. And the goal, frankly, is to give our governor the space and the support to know that his actions in protecting people in Pennsylvania are supported by the majority of legislators in the legislature and, by the majority of the people because, just by will of numbers. And so I think that's our goal here. I think it's really something that we are, we want to see these pieces of legislation move. But I'm going to be honest with you, it's unlikely with a Republican majority in our state Senate who doesn't even want to condemn ICE behavior or ICE actions.
Yeah, I guess you just made the argument for why we have to flip the Senate.
That's
Eileen,
right. And that's
no
why
pressure on
Eileen,
you.
no,
Come
but
on.
Eileen is here. No pressure on Eileen, but we are counting on Eileen to join our ranks. I'm going to take your job, Gwen. We are only 3 seats away from a majority in our state Senate, and we have 4 seats that we're targeting with really terrific candidates. Eileen Albiar, who is on our Zoom, is one of them. Please, if you can, support any of those state candidates. And we want to grow our majority in the state house as well. Terrific candidates running there to flip seats too. So we can do this. But we need your help to do it. And we will see on the other side that Pennsylvania can operate in a way that really does protect every single one of the people in our Commonwealth without, any equivocations, really.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. I do have another question here, and we have a couple more minutes because there are actually still a lot of questions, but I don't think we're going to get to all of them. But I don't know if you guys, I'm sure Heidi, you're in Bucks County, you know the situation that happened in a Quaker town with these kids. And I don't know exactly all of the details, but essentially there was a protest. It was a peaceful protest by students, and they were walking out in protest against ICE activity from school, and it resulted in these kids being apprehended. And the question is, if the bills that you're talking about, Senator Collett, had been introduced where, although I don't know that they were an ICE agent, that was just a police officer. I don't know if anything would have been different as a result, because maybe I just answered my question, but I don't know if you have any comment on that or that situation.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation because you're right. The police chief was not acting in a capacity as a federal law enforcement officer with ICE. And even the protest, and I'm sure Heidi has many more details about this than I do. I know the Welcome Project was working day and night to support those families and children that were detained. It's just really such a tragic circumstance. But no, I don't think these laws would apply to that chief. I think that's something that's still working its way through to kind of figure out. I just also want to mention that chief happens to be the township manager as well, which is really frustrating because that person has a lot of power in both of those roles. We as citizens just need to do better to demand that our local government is much more transparent and accountable. The local I guess it's township supervisors hire the manager, and I don't know why there was no one else qualified to do that job except for the chief of police. But, let's be really honest that overlap is really troubling, and it's something that we as citizens who are voting in all of these elections need to be much more aware of and hold our elected officials accountable for that kind of behavior. But I know I went off on a tangent. My apologies.
Yeah. Heidi, did you have any other information to share on that situation? Then I guess we'll wrap after that, just to respect everyone's time.
Absolutely. So we have been working with the 5 families of the 5 children that were detained, and they are all connected with legal counsel. They are in the midst of the criminal case, so there's not a lot of updates regarding that. And that the most important thing to note is that these children, all 5 children, are U.S. citizens. They are allies of the movement. They are letting their voices and their opinions be heard. And I have to say, I'm just proud of them because I think it's gonna start with youth engagement in their civic duties, to really, age up to vote for Eileen, or to vote people into office that we need. And so engaging them early in this process, I think, is an ultimately wonderful thing, right? The youth, they are our future leaders. They are bearing witness to what is going on. They are involved and engaged. So we have to match that energy and be just as involved and engaged.
Thank you so much. There are more questions, but I think I will definitely read through them and make sure that when we send out our recap, we'll have a way for you guys to either contact Heidi or contact Senator Collett's office, and we'll see what kind of resources we can put in there as well. I am going to very quickly share my screen just to share a couple of things before we sign off. Just to let you know, okay, obviously what we talked about, you can see how important, how it matters so much who is serving in the state legislature. Thank you, Senator Collett, for all that you're doing. I mean, thank you. I don't know how many times we can say that. But in our upcoming briefings, I hope you'll join us in April. We are going to have newly endorsed candidates. Just for you guys to know, the way that we work and represent PA, we endorse candidates sort of on a timeline. And the next round coming up is the pre-primary round. We will be releasing those in early to mid-April. And so I can tease, give a teaser saying that in April, we're going to have newly endorsed candidates, but it will be a surprise because we won't be able to announce who they are until mid-April. And then in May, we are going to have Rachel Bittkoffer, who's an author. She's a political pundit. You may have seen her on MSNBC. She's a hoot. And that will actually be at lunchtime. So not a breakfast briefing, but a lunch briefing because she is on the West Coast. So that's just a couple of things coming up. And then I just want to drive home because, what we talked about today, so important. And this idea of flipping the Senate. And we saw in action today, like what it would mean if we actually had the Senate. We right now enjoy a 1-seat majority in the House, and that's frankly not enough. We need more because there are some things that we even can't get done in the House with a 1-seat majority. So we need to expand that. We have to flip the Senate because everything goes to die there. Well, a lot of things do. Some things get done, but we could do so much more if we did that. We are set up this cycle to make gains. While all of this horrible stuff is going on in the news, let's make lemonade out of lemons. It's depressing and sad to see the news headlines, but what it is going to do is engage people and say, we've had enough of this. We're not going to put up with this. And historically, when, the opposition, when Republicans are in charge, Democrats do well. And that's a situation that we're going into in 26, but it's not going to happen on its own. We've got to help these candidates. So we are doing this big push for early money. If you have a budget in mind that you're thinking, I'm going to donate to my favorite campaign, or I'm going to donate to represent PA, do it now. Don't wait. I'm going to tell you really quickly why, because this is when candidates are building out their campaigns. This is when they're hiring their campaign staff. The sooner that campaigns can staff up and get those pieces in place means they're going to get out and talk to voters sooner. And that is the single most impactful thing that a candidate can do, is get on those doors. Talk to the people that are going to be their constituents or may already be their constituents if they're seeking re-election. And by getting them money early, allowing them to staff up, they're going to be able to do that sooner. Getting candidates money sooner can unlock more money. Many donors and the caucuses do it too. They take a look at the candidates and they say how much is in their account. And, they get a second look. If there's a big check that's coming in from someone, say, represent PA, they say, oh, there's momentum building there. Let's look over there. And other organizations will do the same. So it really has a compounding effect when we come in early for our candidates. It allows the candidates to, build their strategy and research. And for all of these reasons, what it really means is that the candidate gets to define themselves first, rather than their opponent defining them. And I can't tell you how important that is. So to that end, we've got a couple of events coming up. We've had, we had some early events in February. If you're in Montgomery or Bucks County, actually tomorrow night, We've got an event in honor of Women's History Month. And then on Saturday, we're going to be in Center City with Hadley Haas, who actually was on the Zoom. She will be there live and in person. You can come meet her. And one of our other wonderful senators, Katie Muth, will be there. Tomorrow night, it's going to be Mary Jo Daley, who, as many of you know, is not seeking re-election, but has been in the legislature for some time. And it's very interesting. She's able to speak on what it's been like as a woman serving for, the last 13 plus years. She's the co-founder of Emerge PA. So she's got really, really interesting perspective. Other ways to stay involved: go take a look at our website, attend more breakfast briefings. They're easy to attend, right? They're on Zoom. You can be in your pajamas if you want to. They don't cost anything to attend. Invite friends to come, help spread the word. I mentioned events that we're having. If you're interested in hosting an event, please reach out to us. We can make that happen. I think I also mentioned our endorsement process. What makes us unique is that we have an endorsement committee. If you are interested in joining that, please reach out. Historically, that has been, like a financial commitment. But hey, I'm always open to a conversation. If you're passionate about it, please contact me. I'd love to talk to you. You can join our mailing list, follow us on social media. And I think that's it. And of course, donate. We're actually in Women's History Month, and we have this amazing thing going on. It's Women's Her Story, we like to call. We have a phenomenal, very generous donor that is matching all new money that comes into Represent PA this month. So if you donate in March, your donation is matched. And with that, look, 9:33, I'm not too bad. I guess we'll call it a wrap. And Heidi, thank you so much. If I didn't say that already, thank you so much. I'll make sure everybody has your contact when we send out our recap.
Thank you so much, Gwen. Thank you so much for all the hard work you are doing. Appreciate everyone on the call.
Yeah. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Bye.